welcome back to Beholder to No One, a D&D podcast. Today, Greg and I are here with Jeff.
Hello.
And Jeff is from ReRoll Podcast.
ReRoll Expectations.
Correct. ReRoll Expectations Podcast. I totally said it right the first time.
So you can't even get it right. Jesus.
Well, it's ReRollcast on Twitter, so I just call him
that.
Oh, fair enough. Okay.
It was too long for the Twitter Twitter handle.
All right, so Jeff, it's your fault then.
I blame Twitter on that one. They wouldn't let me have a super long title.
Damn Twitter and their characters. So Jeff, you're the DM for ReRoll?
I am the singular only dungeon master for the podcast. I believe I also have the most experience in dungeon mastering out of the four of us. I think one of our other players, Casey, has some experience, but I am the most seasoned of all of us.
That's fun. How long have you been DMing for?
I've been playing on and off since high school, which was like 2008, playing different homebrew things here and there. Took a little break for a little while, came back, did some paper stuff recently, and then started the podcast.
You have been playing almost as long as me, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
I'm the noob of the group.
Well, my high school library had the core books for 3.5 in the library. So as soon as I found out about it, we checked out those books the entire 4 years of my high school career.
Damn, that's awesome. I wish my high school and middle school library had those books.
You never stepped in the library.
Wow, called out.
What? Yeah, I was gonna say, what are you doing calling me out on the podcast? That's so uncool.
It's true, though.
I can read.
If you would have stepped in the library, I would have met you because I was in there all the time.
No, that's high school. I did say high school or middle school. I did not go to the same school as you.
Middle school, fine. You got me there. But high school,
yeah,
I would have seen you.
Yeah, probably. That's fair.
I was my spot was right in front of the library by the soda machine.
On the outside of the building or inside?
Inside.
Okay, I was going to say, because I actually did, surprise, I did go into the library a few times.
Gasp.
And I know, right? In high school to read a book series called Daughters of the Moon.
I thought you were going to say to use the water fountain.
Also that.
To use the computer.
Yeah, to play League of Legends at school.
You could do that at your high school? Man, I couldn't do that.
God, no, I wish. God, no.
We had Halo on our computers in high school, and that was like the crowning achievement.
I mean, that's pretty badass. Like, honestly, I think we had like Math Blaster.
I guess. So it was just, I think Blood Gulch was the only map we had.
I mean, it's better than nothing.
Fair.
I think I just used it to log on to AIM and stuff like that.
Man, way to date us as people.
He literally said he started playing in 2008 and
okay, you know what? You're right. I'm sorry. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for dating us super early in the episode.
No problem. Listen, you started it by saying that you started playing Magic in 95, which is when I was still barely an idea. That's not true. I was older than that. I was sentient at that time.
I was barely an idea, but actually I was sentient. Never mind.
But actually, I was a toddler.
I can't math.
All right, fine. I'll take the blame on that one.
Good. So we already answered when you started playing. What was that? 3.5?
3.5. Yeah, that was it.
I started playing that in 2003, I think. Yeah, 2003. I picked it up because we walked into like a local gaming store and some people were playing it. I was like, "Ooh, what are you playing?" And then never looked back.
I actually had no information or like history with Dungeons and Dragons until I'd seen those books in my school library. I think one of my best friends had played a couple times, but we had never played or thought of or anything related to any sort of tabletop game until I had found those books, and I was like, guys, we need to play this game. Like, this is gonna be super cool. And we played, I think, like maybe like 1 or 2 sessions, and we broke all the rules. We know what we were doing. It was dumb. I gave him like 3 level ups every session, like super unbalanced. Yeah, I didn't know how experience worked. It was great.
You're suddenly level 20. You're suddenly level 23. How do we do that? I don't know.
Well, it was
your gods after 20. It doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, well, I was like, all right, cool. You guys are level 5 now. And then, like, once you start adding in the prestige classes that existed in 3.5, you get like the assassin class where you can like 3-turn kill any target ever.
Oh, I loved the assassin class.
Yeah. So like there was no balance. I was in brand new dungeon master. Rules were hard. I was like, you know what? Go with it. That sounds cool. It's fine. And
Roll the dice. You win.
yeah, and even now it still carries on. I'm very much like a you know what? Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it. That's cool. You can do that. I don't always follow by the rules as written because it's always just more interesting to be like, you know what? That just sounds cool. Do it.
Yeah, for sure. I will make a small comment that I hope people understand. Thanos would be very upset with your original DMing style.
There is no balance here, Thanos.
Yes. All right. Thank you. I'm happy now. Cool.
Mission accomplished. All right, let's pack it up.
All right. End recording. The unprecedented 8-minute episode of Beholder No One.
It's a speed run. We're doing the speed run strat.
When we first played, when I first played, it was, I don't remember the characters, I don't remember the game. The only thing I remember is that I played the only girl at the table. My best friend was there, but she played a boy character. So I was like, of course, I'm the only female. Awesome. And looking back, that could have gone so differently, especially with like other experiences I've had at the table with males. But I'm really happy that it didn't, because I wouldn't have never played again. So I'm really glad that it went really well. But they were super helpful, and I remember them like being very nice and explaining things to us and how to build characters. But later when I played again, it went more min-max, because that's what people like to do sometimes. And I didn't really like that aspect of 3.5 with how min-maxed it gets, or it can be.
Yeah, one of the pros and cons of 3.5 is just how robust the system really is. There are so many things that you can build towards and specialize in comparison to 3.5, where they might have, some people would say it's been dumbed down, but I would say it's more like it's been streamlined, where I don't need to worry about each one of my stats having 10 different skills associated with it and being skilled in each one of those or train each one of those things, versus like, yeah, I can do all of this a little bit, it's fine.
There is some things I liked about 3.5 and Pathfinder ultimately, which I know I remember more about Pathfinder since I played that more recently. I did like some of the skills. I like the concept of the skills where you had ranks and you could put them in different things and you weren't limited to what you could take. So you could be a barbarian but still take history and be really good at like knowledge of certain things. I did like that knowledge was broken out a little bit, because it made more sense to me that you were more focused on your studies versus I know everything. Things like that I enjoyed. I didn't like that the feats were just, there's too many of them. It was very confusing.
Oh yeah, there's so many feats.
It was very confusing, and there was just like thousands of options, especially with all the books, the extra books added to it. I loved the prestige classes, though. The concept of prestige classes was just really interesting, especially if you started at higher level, because then you could play.
I actually kind of miss prestige classes. I wish they'd come back in 5th edition.
Yeah, I like the prestige races too.
I don't recall those.
They might not be called prestige races, so don't call me out, people who listen who played 3.5 and remember these things.
I'm calling you out right now. I don't think that was a thing.
There were races that you could only play if you had certain, like if you were level 5 and you had to have certain ranks and stuff. Like there was a stone one that I played before where it was like a completely stone humanoid, and they had a really high constitution and strength because of it, but that made them unbalanced for a level 1.
I have no idea what that is.
I don't remember what they were called.
I'm drawing a blank too. The only thing I can think of right now is because Nikki mentioned a barbarian proficient in history, I'm just imagining a barbarian archaeologist.
Hey man, you gotta crack open those rocks somehow. Sometimes with brute force.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Oh, we need a little help. The chisels just aren't doing it. I got it. Rage.
Hold on, I'm looking it up. I actually typed in races, and the Races of Stone book came up, which is the book I use.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
I was like, what the hell? Stone Child is what it was called. They start with a +8 strength and +8 con
Holy
and +2
crap.
intelligence.
Yikes.
and -2 charisma. So they only went up to level 6, but I'm trying to see.
Wait, so the character itself can go past level 6?
It was a level adjustment of +4. So you started at 4th level to play it.
Interesting.
And you were level 1. It was I had help building it. I do not remember how I built it, but it's freaking ridiculous.
I have never heard of that.
Yeah, I enjoyed her. She was a lot of fun.
What's the minus on their charisma if they have a +8 to strength and a +8 to constitution? Is there a minus on their charisma?
-2.
That's it.
-2 to charisma.
All right, here's another question. This just randomly popped into my head. You know how I don't really think this has anything to do with specifically what we're talking about, but my brain's kind of all over the place right now. You know how intellect devourers, they can obviously devour your intellect?
Mhm.
So if your
Checks out.
yes, so if your intelligence score drops to 0 or below 0, you go catatonic and die. Correct?
Yes,
I believe so.
What?
you do. If any of your stats go to 0, you die.
Okay, so by that logic, if your charisma hits 0, is it you just become so ugly that you die?
Well, charisma is not your physical features. It can be attributed to it, but it's also the way you carry yourself, the way your character carries itself in conversations, body language, stuff like that. If I recall the exact definition of charisma, I would assume you're just so boring you bored yourself to death.
Oh, that's a good one too. I like that even better.
Yep, sure. We'll go with that. Yeah, I don't think there's many charisma negatives. Mostly things affect your intelligence, your strength, your con.
Right.
Dexterity as well.
Yep.
Yeah, so I don't think there's any abilities that I know of in 5th edition that subtract your charisma.
Yeah, I can't really think of any either. I guess
I got nothing.
The question spawned from the whole +8 strength, +8 constitution, and I was like, well, if they have that, their charisma minus must be massive. So I was in my head, I was like, oh, it's a -8 charisma. So if you roll bad enough, like to start your character, you just don't have any charisma at all and can't continue. But clearly not the case.
Nope.
So moot point.
I have started. Funny enough, I've started with a character that had like a 3 strength.
That's how.
She was fun.
You rolled 4 1s and just took one of them away?
No, this wasn't 5th edition. It was Shadowrun.
I've now played Shadowrun.
And I rolled for stats, which I don't know if that's the normal protocol in the game, but we were doing like a 5th edition version. And I got a 5, I think. And then we randomly picked a flaw, and the flaw I picked was weakened, which was -2 to my strength. So I could have switched it around where my strength wasn't a 5 and I put something else as a 5, but I was like, no, I'm good. This is funny. Like, I'm fine with this. Or not funny. This makes sense for the character that I'm building. So we ended up putting her in this really badass wheelchair, and she was the decker, so she didn't really need strength. And we went with the background that she had a disability, and that's why her strength was lower, because her muscles didn't want to work properly. And she got this really badass like $50,000 wheelchair, because I used like most of my money for it. It had like a Gatling gun in it, and it could go like 40 miles an hour.
You know, just a casual Gatling gun.
Yeah, it was like a scorpion tail thing that just popped out and shot people.
Conversely, there was a tabletop system I was play testing for an old DM of mine who ran a publishing company. And I don't know what the system was called. It was years since I played this thing, but I happened to get maximum strengths on this character. And it was sort of a cyberpunk Shadowrun-esque kind of game. And I was a luchador. And my strength was so high, I was using the bad guys as a club to beat up other bad guys.
I just imagine that there was I think it's a meme.
Nice.
It's like, have you ever gotten so angry that you beat a motherfucker with another motherfucker?
Basically, is what I did. It was a pretty good one shot.
Yeah, I mean, 2 birds with 1 stone, right? For one, never mind.
Well, no, the best part is that character was called the Phoenix.
There.
Oh, very nice. I love it.
It was 1 bird, 2 birds, 1 stone.
Ah ha ha.
But
I'll excuse myself now.
I was gonna say like I guess we'll both excuse ourselves, and then Nikki can just do the rest of the episode by herself. We can go play some Magic.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
I can talk with.
I'm aware.
I talk to myself all the time. I'm Pope.
Just hope.
that somebody else is listening.
Just please, somebody respond.
Usually it's my husband and he's
Well,
not.
both the government too. They're always listening.
His response is usually, what? Like taking off his headphones.
Oh, to be fair, that's what I do to him too.
Oh, well, there you go. All right.
Especially when he talks about magic
Yeah, that's fair.
or programming. And I'm just like, I have no idea what you're saying.
Hey, I like both of those things. Hell yeah.
I'm not, like, I've played magic before, but I'm not super into it like Greg and my husband are. They're super into it.
As we were talking about before we started recording, I've been playing Magic for like 11, 12 years, and it's a big part of my growth into the hobby of board games and tabletop games. So I really value Magic very high on my calendar. A calendar? What is a calendar? on my list of things I love to play and love to talk about, Magic is right up there.
Nice. Yeah, and as I mentioned before the recording, I've been playing since '95, and that was also a kind of a stepping stone into me becoming not obsessed, but enjoy card games, TCGs, TTRPGs, so on and so forth.
You can just say addicted. It's fine. It's a safe space here.
That's all right. Yeah, all right. I'm addicted. I have a problem.
I
do.
That problem constantly. Because if you're addicted, I am beyond that.
Yes.
I don't know what beyond that is.
Yeah, fair.
Listen, you guys don't know what addiction is. You guys see my board game shelf. I have a massive collection of board games, and I have barely played most of them.
Nice. I have a pretty big collection over here as well, but we play them relatively often.
Except for the chess game that I bought Ashley for her birthday. That's still sealed.
Well, she doesn't like playing chess with me.
Well, that's because chess is some weak shit.
Or did I buy it for you?
Hey. I actually really enjoy chess.
I think it was for you. Yeah, that was for you.
I don't remember either. It was the Destiny one, right?
According to Board Game Geek, I have 26 board games, but I feel like I have more than that. Not counting my roommate's collection.
All right, well, we're going to put the episode on pause. Go count your board games.
Well, no, because there's some of them are smaller games that are all in like BCW boxes because I don't care.
Gotcha.
I do have a pretty decent collection of board games. So I need to turn this down a little bit too.
We every once in a while we'll go. My husband and I will go over to Greg and Ashley's house and we'll play board games instead of D&D. But usually when we hang out, we play D&D.
Yeah, we have or we play D&D board games because we have Betrayal at Baldur's Gate, which is super fun.
I have not played any of the D&D board games yet. I've played regular Betrayal at House on Haunted Hill. I've not played the Baldur's Gate version.
That's the best game ever. It's my favorite.
Yeah, we have that one and the expansion.
We can agree disagree on that one.
Oh, you don't like it?
Not to derail this D&D podcast where we have barely talked about D&D. I think that Betrayal, while fun and creative, does have some glaring oversights into the game design itself, and it does lean towards a lot of confusing, obfuscated rules that don't always make a lot of sense. There are a lot of other similar-esque board games that have a lot more clear and concise rules.
That's fair.
Not that it's a bad game, it's just not for me.
I like it personally, but like last time we played, we got it was literally start over completely from scratch. You have 30 minutes to find particular items, or you start over but you have half the time, 15 minutes and then 7 minutes and then 3 minutes, and then you lose. Like you basically keep going till you can't go half anymore.
The second time I played, my friend was the trader, and it was whatever Betrayal was, where he summoned some fire bats, and his only goal is to kill the players. The players have to perform a seance in 2 different rooms with certain items, and it just so happened that I had the items, and I had another item that said I could pass the items to other players without being in the same room.
Oh, nice.
And so the turn starts with the trader. He moved 2 fire bats, didn't kill anyone, and then it goes through the 3 player turns. We pass the items along and beat the game before it goes to his next turn, and that was the whole thing.
Oh, Jesus.
So he got 1 turn of being the trader, and that was it, and the game was over.
Damn, you were stacked for that that one.
Yeah, it could have gotten completely different if you didn't have those items, or if those rooms weren't open yet. That was the issue we had. We had to find a particular item, and we just kept drawing cards, hoping that we would get the item in order to win. And it was like a race against the clock. So at one point, their roommate was trying to read something, and we're like, "No, just go read.
Throw the card down. We don't have time.
We don't have time for you to stumble over your words right now."
They also just released Betrayal at the Mystery Mansion. It's Scooby-Doo themed.
Ooh.
Oh, Ashley's gonna want that.
Hell yeah.
It's a smaller box too. It's more simplified, if I recall.
Wait, is it an add-on to the original game, or is it its own game?
No, it's a standalone betrayal game that's Scooby-Doo themed, but it's geared more towards a younger audience. So it's less dark. It's a little more rules light, if I recall correctly. It's still pretty cool
Nice. I'll
Interesting.
have to look into that.
Well, we'll take this board game / Magic the Gathering discussion and translate this back to D&D. Have you guys ever used the Magic the Gathering D&D books, supplemental books?
One of my players in my currently paused / canceled paper campaign is playing a Circle of Spores Druid, which I thought to be a very unique take on the class. But aside from that, I have not really played a lot with it. I've only played with a homebrew version of, I'm blanking on the name, Innistrad. I did an Innistrad homebrew campaign that I took from someone on Reddit.
Ooh,
That's
that's
about
pretty
it.
cool. Was it just like basically a H.P. Lovecraft campaign then? If it was Innistrad?
No, it was more gothic horror than H.P. Lovecraft. It was the classic Innistrad, not the Eldrazi Innistrad.
Oh, okay.
So much more gothic themed. If I recall correctly, it was about trying to find. It was going to a city to defend it from vampires and an oncoming vampire invasion, and that was like the big pivotal part of that like little adventure that the person had written. So it was nice. I'm just tripping over my words right now. It was filled with a lot of like rich horror themes. There's a lot of cool, darker themes going on, and very much relevant to those who play Magic. Because out of that session, two of us had played Magic, so we knew the world and we knew the creatures from it. But it was easily something you could take away and let other people play, and then not have a really good semblance of what's going on. They could just fall right in and be like, "Okay, cool, we're in a scary setting. Got it. Cool, we're in."
Nice. I would love to play a homebrewed MTG campaign. I mean, we do have over here. I believe we have the first Magic one that came out.
Well, they haven't been put in paperback.
Oh, is it online only?
Which one?
Yeah, the PDFs.
Or
No, because I swear I have Ravnica here.
Ravnica, yes.
Zendikar was never printed. It was digital only, and then it was Ravnica.
Right.
Amonkhet is also PDF. You're correct.
Like Amonkhet.
And Kaladesh.
Yeah, the ones I'm thinking of are all PDF.
Gotcha. Well,
is also PDF.
Oh, I didn't even know they came out with the Kaladesh one. That's cool.
Pretty sure they did. I think that's where it's a different kind of Vidalcan is in that one, because Vidalcans are also in the Ravnica one.
Right.
But there's a different flavor of them in the Kaladesh one.
Oh, cool.
So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plane shift
That many?
books.
Oh shit.
Zendikar, Innistrad, Kaladesh, Amonkhet, Ixalan,
Yep.
and
Dominaria.
Dominaria.
Nice.
Those are the 6. Amonkhet's the one that I've played with. Has the Aven creatures, which are
Even the Kenra.
Avens are,
It's the Egyptian themed
Yeah.
one for those who don't play Magic the Gathering.
but they're humanoid except they have wings and they have bird heads, but they are broken, which is probably why they're not released to like actually be in the normal books. Like the Aven, Hawkeye Aven, you have long distance range without disadvantage with any weapon. So my ranger had a 600-foot range without disadvantage because she used a longbow.
I mean, for me, at least the way I DM, because I'm mostly a theater of mind kind of DM, range really doesn't matter for me most times. So like,
But it could.
You're right, it could, but for the most part in my stuff, if the player will just ask me like, "Hey, can I hit that?" I'm like, "Yeah, you can hit it. That's fine."
So
Mostly like cover comes into play more than like just straight range.
That makes sense.
This character was for a play-by-post server, and unfortunately I left that server, so I can't play her anymore, and it makes me so sad. But there was one instance, like I tried not to abuse it because I knew it was very cheap and it was broken, and I don't like playing broken characters usually. But there was one time we were fighting giants and we were in the middle of a plane and they were chucking gigantic boulders at me, and I'm just like, I fly all the way up in the air so they can't hit me. Because I'm just like, I don't want to die. I'm just going to fly 600 feet up and slowly just shoot them with arrows. And they're like, well, eventually you'll run out of arrows. I'm like, nope, I have a bag of holding. There's 200 in there.
I will stay here
got
forever.
this.
We'll make this work.
But she was a lot of fun to play. I know that the world wasn't based off this, but I twisted the lore for her, at least, that she was in a war. Her family, or the Avens, were in a war with elementals, which I think is actually an Aarakocra ruling or lore. But it was a lot of fun for me to play her, at least.
It sounds like it would be for sure.
Yeah, who's like flying 200 feet in the air and just blasting giants down from 600 meters feet.
Right.
I wanted to play I've also played the Vidalcan, which Greg reminded me of, which I forgot what's from those books. I don't remember which one. Was that from Ravnica?
I believe that was also from Ravnica.
It was probably in Ravnica because the only physical printing of that race.
Right, yeah. And our other player, my roommate was playing the
Luxodon.
Thank you, the Loxodon.
Yeah, the Vidalcans were fun. They didn't really have the bonus that they got was that they could breathe underwater, which never came into use. But the other bonus was they have advantage on all their mental stats. So at least for saving throws, so advantage on charisma, wisdom, and intelligence, which was pretty nice. So that was helpful. That's really like all they had. They had like nothing else. But I played them because it was fun, not because like, oh, I can make a broken character.
So you could breathe underwater, but you let Val and Crom take a submarine by themselves to go fight this weird shark creature or whatever it was. You couldn't jump in and help them out?
To be fair, Roya was high on shrooms at the time.
Oh, I mean, yeah, okay, that tracks. That's fine.
She was given a mushroom.
There's always a bigger fish.
Yeah.
She could have jumped in there if they needed it.
Yeah, you
but
could have been healing them from outside the ship.
They were fine.
I mean, eventually.
And I probably honestly forgot that she had breathing underwater because it never came up.
That's very fair. I didn't even know that until just now, so.
Yeah, aquatic campaigns or aquatic encounters are just it's not fun. Adding that third dimension to combat when it comes to like flight terms isn't always so bad, but when it's underwater and movement speed's different, it's a pain
for sure. And that one specifically, you would Theater of Mind would be extremely difficult in my eyes to do.
Oh yeah, we're never going to water for anything.
I mean, a pure example was some of the later Critical Role episodes.
Yeah, for sure.
They're like, you move at half speed and
all your melee attacks are at disadvantage.
You can only shoot up to 30 feet and no further.
I'm going to get a lot of flack, but I've never listened to Critical Role. I'm a bad person for it, I know.
You're not a bad person.
I mean, not a bad person, but we are going to have to cut you from this episode now.
Well, it was nice. No. I appreciate your time.
Of course.
I will say that, like, honestly, Critical Role, I love it, but it's not like the end all be all, and I don't think people are any less of not listening to it. I always will encourage them, like, hey, listen to this if you have the time, because that's the biggest hindrance for a lot of people is I don't have the time to listen to it. And I have been reading online that a lot of people are like, I love Critical Role, but I hate the fan base.
That tracks for a lot of fandoms, just in general.
Oh, for
yeah,
sure.
like some of the fans are a little intense, but that's for anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it comes to D&D podcasts, I find myself to be picky, and I'm not going to say that these are things that I listened to in Critical Role and did not like, because again, I have not listened to Critical Role. Please don't take this as criticism against the TV show, podcast, and yell at me for it, because this is different. But I'm very particular when it comes to the DM's flavor and how they want to DM. So the two that I listen to the most is the original run of Acquisitions Incorporated. I always pause on saying that because it's a big word for my dumb mouth, because Chris Perkins is just an absolute treasure of a dungeon master. He's talented, he's funny, the voices are great, and even though, again, I like doing theater of mind kind of stuff, the things he brings to the table for these poor men to play is just beautiful. And again, because he works at Wizards, he has the inside scoop on everything that's going on in these sessions. But the other one I love listening to is Adventure Zone, which I know I've heard you guys talk about before. Griffin McElroy is just so good. Such a talented storyteller, and just the way he builds the worlds that you're in, whether it's the actual D&D one with balance, or it's Amnesty where it's the real world and just slightly off. Just the way he can paint a picture for listeners just blows me away. And also, I like Travis too. People are saying that Travis is not doing good for Graduation. I disagree. I like Graduation. It's great.
When I first started watching Adventure Zone, I watched it because like people were suggesting it. They're like, oh, it's really funny. And at first, because I am very much a rules lawyer for D&D, I was having a hard time getting into it because they were not they were very open about it. Like we're not being super strict on the rules. We don't really know fifth edition very well, but they kept doing things that were like breaking the rules basically, and it was irritating me.
Mm-hmm.
But after a couple of episodes, I started to realize like it was still really funny. It was still really interesting to listen to it. And as long as I could push aside that, no, you don't get +6 on your healing and things like that, then it was interesting.
Let's be honest, though. He only healed the party like 3 times in the entirety of the balance arc.
But
That's very
yes,
fair.
but like every single time he rolled a stat, he's like +7. And I'm like, what? No, that's not how this works.
I had the exact same reaction with Adventure Zone, where like I listened to like 10 episodes and then I had to stop because it was annoying me because I also am a rules lawyer. Like I was sitting at work listening to it and then I just start like yelling at my computer screen like, no, that's not how that works. You can't do that. And then I have to excuse myself to go to the break room because I'm on the floor yelling at my computer screen in front of 300 people. But yeah, you know, after you hit a certain point, it is absolutely hilarious. Like I don't think I've laughed the pedals to the metal, like the beginning of that where they run into the treant.
Mm-hmm.
I laughed so hard on the floor at work that I had to excuse myself and go to the bathroom because I was laughing way too hard.
Yeah, once I started to actually get into the story, I was like, this is great. I just started watching it. And like I was falling behind on Critical Role because I just kept wanting to watch that. And I'm caught up on Critical Role now, and I do like the story, but for different reasons. I like the depth of the story. There's still jokes, but there's still serious notes. There's a lot of backstory, which I love. And there's a lot of things that get intertwined into the story from prior campaigns or from things that you don't realize will come up. And I love that type of story, which is why I enjoy Critical Role. That being said, it is a lot. And if it wasn't for the fact that I could listen at work, I would not be into Critical Role because I'm not going to sit at home for 3 hours, 4 hours and watch an episode when I could be doing something else. Because I can listen to 1 or 2 episodes a day at work while I'm doing other things. That's how I got through it.
Yeah, same here, 100%. And you said you like Chris Perkins. Have you
Love Chris Perkins?
Same, 100%. Do you ever watch Dice Camera Action?
I have not. What is that?
That is a D&D podcast DM'd by Chris Perkins.
Oh, baby.
Yeah. Get into it, buddy.
Still my beating heart.
It has him and like a bunch of YouTubers like Pro Jared, Nate Wants to Battle.
Not a fan of Pro Jared, but okay, continue.
Yeah. Nate Wants to Battle.
I don't think a lot of people are anymore.
Yeah, that's very fair. And like 2 other people. Oh, Holly Conrad and Anna.
Also not a fan of her.
Something. I don't remember the girl's name. But it's DM'd by Chris Perkins. It went for probably like 120 episodes, I want to say.
41
like that.
According to Google.
There you go. And they had to stop it because of something that happened between a couple of the cast members. But
that's why I don't like those 2 people that I mentioned.
To be fair,
but yeah, it's super good.
To be fair, for one of those 2 people, well, I guess both of them, I suppose, wasn't it found out that wasn't true?
Yes.
So technically, they didn't do anything wrong.
Technically not, but it kind of blew up.
Yeah, I think it.
I'd have to go back and check my notes to come to a final decision. My recollection, they were both wrong.
Well,
but again, I'll stay partial, I suppose.
Yeah, from what I like, at first I was like, I didn't really care very much. I thought it was shitty if what happened was true, but when it came out that it was like the ex-wife or separated wife or something was lying, I was like, oh, well, they're just shitty circumstances and they got pulled into the shitstorm when they didn't do anything technically wrong. So I mostly felt bad for Holly in that situation because she wasn't doing anything wrong if what is said is true. Like technically neither of them were doing anything wrong if what they said was true.
Right.
They were being adults and they were separated. Nobody was cheating. It still kind of sucks.
Anyway, back to the Dungeons and Dragons stuff.
It's still Dungeons and Dragons, really.
Technically, it was.
like the transitive property related, sure.
Yeah, it's tangentially Dungeons and Dragons.
But going back to flavors of dungeon mastering, I think that comparing Chris Perkins to Matt Mercer paints two very different but equally godlike images of what dungeon masters can aspire to. Not to knock Griffin McElroy, still love you. Sorry, you never listen to this, but I still love you, Griffin. Please call me back.
We all love you, Griffin. We all love you.
But like, you can listen to Chris Perkins and his absolute knowledge of like Forgotten Realms or whatever area they're in, and the quick comebacks and the quick comedy of what he's doing. And then you can compare that to Matt Mercer, and Matt Mercer is very detailed, background heavy, lore heavy sort of dungeon mastering. It's two really good examples of what DMs can work towards doing. And I know for me, I'm not as good at being the quick jokey one like Chris Perkins. I'm much more of like a cool, we're going to go to do this one encounter, but I have like 4 paragraphs of exposition and lore to tell you guys because I like to do it, and no one's ever going to know about it.
Well, you might like Chris Perkins. Well, sorry, I don't think Chris Perkins is running it, but there's a new game that just was released with 2 of the cast from Dice Camera Action, neither of the ones that you didn't like. Anna Prosser and Nathan Sharp.
That was her. Anna Prosser was the girl I was trying to think of.
There's also Jonathan Indovino and Mika Burton, and they're playing in a new game. And I think it's, what is his name? I follow him on Twitter.
You can do it.
Sherlock Holmes?
I believe in you.
Something Holmes.
Do your best.
Mark Holmes.
There you go.
Mark Holmes runs it, and they just started this game a couple of weeks ago. I think it's called Evening Star. And I watched the first episode, and it was really interesting so far, at least.
I remember you mentioning that to Ashley and myself, but I don't think I've sat down and watched it yet.
Well, I knew that Ashley liked Anna, and I knew that you liked Nate. So I figured, I'm like, hey, here's 2 of the 4 people from that show you guys like to watch. So here you go.
Yeah, and I'm a piece of shit because I haven't sat down and watched it yet.
How dare you?
Well,
unbelievable.
So
hey, I get enough crap from her. I don't need the guest of the podcast doing that to me too.
Am I not allowed to do that? Should I?
No, you're completely
sir.
allowed.
Oh
No.
man.
No.
Completely allowed.
I thought I was the antagonist. I'm the heel. No one got that. Okay.
I actually didn't. I'm a little confused. Can you explain?
So
That's how comedy works.
So in wrestling terms, I don't watch wrestling, but I know how this works. There's the face, which is the good guy, and the heel, which is the bad guy. You guys are the face. I'm the heel. I'm the bad boy.
Gotcha. So you're the Undertaker to our. I was gonna say Kane, but I realized that he's the brother technically. So
I know very little of
Mankind.
wrestling.
So you're the Undertaker to our Mankind. We'll go with that.
You surpassed my knowledge already.
I did it.
After wrestling.
Fun fact, my middle school keyboarding teacher knew Mick Foley personally.
Oh, that is really cool.
Yeah, it's okay, Nikki. This is all I know of wrestling. I have not watched wrestling since I was a wee lad.
Nor
I've
have I.
never watched wrestling. The extent of my knowledge is from our friend Kat.
Yeah. Yep.
Which isn't that much. She's obsessed with it, but I'm just like, okay, cool, thanks.
I work with a guy who actually works for WWE, like on and off, so I know a little bit, but I just don't know a whole lot.
That's fair.
I just know some faces here and there.
Nice. Going back to the Chris Perkins / Matt Mercer DM dungeon mastering styles and whatnot, I do 100% agree that they are like top of the top basically, and they do have different.
And Griffin.
Yep, and Griffin, of course. Don't forget Griffin, of course. But yeah, I've had the problem a bunch of times where I sat down and attempted to DM a game, and then while I was also watching Critical Role, so like at the end of the session, I just kind of be like, man, I'll never be as good as Matt and or Chris and or Griffin. So
and or Brandon Lee Mulligan.
Yeah, or X number of other people. So it's a little disheartening, to be completely honest. But at the same time, you can't just immediately jump into dungeon mastering and expect to be that level.
Yeah, you have to also realize that a lot of people they have the experience, they have the time, and that's their job for a lot of them. for Matt specifically, that's his job. Like, he's a voice actor, yes, but he's been voice acting for a while and he has experience with doing that. So
yeah, well, like if I had the ability to like sit down every day and hash out a bunch of stuff for my podcast, our production quality would be through the roof.
Right.
But I don't, so we get by with what we got.
One
same
DM
boat.
that I really like, and it's more silly and sometimes raunchy, but so funny, is Brandon Lee Mulligan. Oh my god, he is so fucking funny. And I don't know if you've ever
I don't know who that is.
So he
I recognize the name, but I can't put a face to it.
he DMs for Dimension 20. And it is just like, you can watch the first episode of most of the shows for free on YouTube, but after that you have to pay to get into their app to watch the rest, which kind of sucks. But I watched their Fantasy High episodes and they were just so fucking funny. And if you like Taz, there is a season that they're on where they played in a game. I think it was like, basically they're all 1-inch people. So they're all like 1-inch people or toys. And they're all like, all 4 of the McElroys are there in the game and 2 other people are with them. But the Fantasy High one is the first one I watched and I freaking loved it. And there was a scene where one of the characters is playing a goblin and they were fighting a corn cutie is what they were calling them, but it was basically the cafeteria food came to life. And the goblin looks at the DM and goes, "How big is his butthole?" And he's just like, "What?"
Oh no.
Like, "How big is his butthole?" He's like, "I've come to a point as a DM where I have to figure out the circumference of a corn monster's butthole and see if it's goblin sized." And then the goblin dived in to grab the item inside of the corn creature.
Oh, he didn't Ant-Man Thanos him? Come on.
They didn't have that magic.
You gotta carry him biggin with you. You gotta have it.
But it was just so fucking funny. And there's some parts where it goes to an extreme where it's like dark and they touch on points that are like a little too far, but it's honestly really worth it.
Ooh, speaking of going too far, yeah, don't do that. I recently wrote an article about trying to be dark in your D&D setting without pushing boundaries because I saw a meme on Reddit where it was about it was the change my mind meme, and it was just like, rape doesn't belong in D&D. If you use it, you're a bad storyteller. Change my mind. And I was like, yeah, no, you are. You can't. It's very difficult to bring those topics into a session, and when you do, you really got to be careful on how you want to do it, and you got to lay that line out with everyone beforehand if you want to go on that dark route for your session.
Honestly, this kind of falls onto the session 0 thing. You need to talk with your players to determine like what they're okay with, and as one person is not okay with something, do not do it. And we actually just had a session 0 recently where those conversations came up. What are you okay with? What are you not okay with? What's too far?
Mm-hmm.
And we discussed, and we all have the ability to email the DM and say, hey, this is what we're not okay with. These are triggers for us. These are things that we don't want to discuss. These are things we want to fade to black with, and stuff like that. And that is definitely one of the ones that came up.
And interestingly enough, the only thing that I had a trigger for was people asking my character the circumference of their butthole. Just not okay with it.
You got to protect it.
Yeah, it's personal information.
I actually missed your episode on session 1. I'm sorry, session 0.
Slacker.
I know you have recorded one recently-ish, but I didn't get a chance to listen to it yet. I am horrible, I know. You should see my podcast backlog is horrible. My players gave me flack for not listening to my own podcast that I DM for and advertise because my backlog was so bad.
Jeez.
But I found out.
Look, the only episode I've listened to of mine was the one that Greg edited because I've already heard it twice.
Luckily, I don't edit the podcast, so I don't have to worry about it. I just listen to a little bit here and there, and that's it, to make sure that I have the right parts, and that's all I need. But going back to it, so I found out literally last night that I guess Monty Cook Games have a social contract to use in your session 0s to talk about sensitive subjects like that. I had no idea. I thought it was super innovative. I loved it a lot.
There was so there's quite a few things, and I think those conversations are really important, and they came up usually in most of my games. It doesn't really come up, though there's been 3 games now that it's come up. The first game was because I was DMing and we were playing a fully evil game. So I talked to everybody at the table and I said, what are you okay with? Because honestly, I'm probably less okay with more things than all of you are. And I will tailor the game to that. So I straight up said, like, these things aren't okay. Yes, you're evil, but these certain things aren't going to be happening at the table. And then another game is the game that I run for Mondays. We discuss those things too. Like, the city that they're in is a crime city. Like, everything is pretty much legal if you can pay the right money, including things that most people don't want to talk about. We just don't touch on those things. They know it exists.
It's the Sin City rules.
Pretty much. Like, they know it exists, but they chose to work for families that don't do those things for a reason. And then now we just had the conversation for our 5th edition actual play that we have coming up, because it is a darker game. So we discussed that. And it's very important. And the one thing that I've recently learned that I didn't know at the session 0 was that there is a system, like the red, yellow, green system, basically, like stoplight, where the person that was discussing it, Victoria, who's a DM, she was explaining that she gave each person a red, green, and yellow pen, or a red and green, yellow item. And all that they have to do in the middle of talking, in the middle of their gameplay, whenever, they just hold up the color in their hand to signify, like, what they're feeling. So if it's going down a path they don't like they need to stop it now, it's a trigger, they hold up the red pen, and then the DM will be able to maneuver the circumstance away in a proper narrative telling without actually interrupting.
I like that.
Yeah, and then, like, yellow is if it's, like, it's okay, but it's kind of going a little too close to something, then yellow is, like, be cautious. And then green is used for if they look upset or they're acting upset because in character they are, but they're okay. They just hold up the green pen. And I really liked that concept. I thought that was really clever, and I think it will help tremendously with situations where players withhold feelings of things from the game and then build this annoyance and anger because people aren't realizing without being told that there's a problem.
I like that. That's a really nice system. It's a good way to illustrate how you're feeling without needing to bring up any potential bad memories or bad thoughts.
Right, exactly.
I like that. I'm fortunate enough that my podcast is a bunch of cis white males because, it just so happened to be that way. We reached out for other players, and that's what we got, so that's what we're rolling with. But we're all pretty easygoing. But even still, now that we just finished our most recent arc, I got all the guys together. I was like, hey, guys, we're going into a new chapter. Like, what do your characters want to do? What do they want to experience? Like, what's on the table for us to do, what's not on the table for us to do. And it's fortunate that they're all so easygoing, but that's just my experience, and I'm sure every DM out there has a different experience with different players who have different needs or different experiences that they need to work with. So a system like that is really good to bring it all together and make it a nice, safe environment to tell a story.
Absolutely, and it doesn't really sound like it actually interrupts the gameplay at all, because as soon as somebody holds up one of those, you can just kind of divert the conversation, the conversation at hand, to something less triggering, I suppose would be the way to say that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly, and then you end up with everybody being happy, and then you're not having to abruptly end or have somebody getting upset because this is something that they're not comfortable with. And there have been games in the past where something was happening that I wasn't okay with, and I just straight up interrupted and said, I don't like this. Can we please fade to black? Can we please move forward? Can we please skip this? And at that point, we weren't recording, so it wasn't an issue. And they're like, yeah, sure, no problem. And they moved on. I didn't get a hard time about it at all, which I'm thankful for, but it's my friends, so I knew that that was not going to be an issue. It's different when it's like, these are complete strangers and you're playing at like a game store with people you don't know. I would like that to be something that's more available and more known so that people can feel comfortable and confident playing in any situation and people aren't scarred for life and then never play again.
I think it also comes down to, again, in your session 0, talk about what your setting is going to be. For me, I very rarely go down those darker paths in storytelling because I don't think it adds anything to my stories that I can't get through other routes, if that makes sense. Like, sure, tragic death is one thing, but like there are some darker topics that I don't want to cover unless we've all discussed ahead of time. And even if you want to play your whole campaign in a darker setting, there are so much better ways to keep it in the back of your players' heads without making it the forefront of it. And like a good way to compare it is the Witcher series. So the world the Witcher takes place in, which escapes me right now because I'm bad at memory anything, it's a very dark world. There's nothing good, I guess, in the world. It's a lot of poverty, it's a lot of murder, monsters come from horrible things, and they can still illustrate that darker world without being overly explicit on the goings of people in day-to-day lives. So like one of the neat things is that like, so there's a monster called the Botchling, if I recall correctly, which is a monster that's created from an unwanted fetus, essentially, or unwanted baby that passes very early in its life. And so that way you can still illustrate that your world is dark, and these horrible things can have repercussions if the people of the world don't follow certain traditions or cultural rules, things like that, but still not have to go in that dark alleyway of the bigger picture of sexual assault or like torture or graphic displays of violence, things like that,
Yeah, and that makes complete sense. I like to have some of those darker things in my stories just because those are the type of stories that I like to read. Thriller based or darker types, more psychological things, and those kind of usually get tied together. Not always. There are situations where it's not, and that's why I'm thankful for the whole fade to black option. And I like that in character, not everybody is going to be, for NPC wise, are going to be happy-go-lucky, we love everybody, you're perfect no matter what type of people, because that's not truly realistic. And in the game, if you're playing in a survival-esque game or a darker campaign setting or like a post-apocalyptic type world, that's more prominent. That's going to happen. So in the Shadowrun games that I've played, those things happen. Like there was sexism and there was racism against the females in the game, or the characters specifically, from particular NPCs. Not every NPC, but just particular NPCs. And my character was a female gnome and was treated very poorly by one NPC particularly. And there was a point where the DM was playing this character and called my character the C word, which I hate in real life. But I didn't take offense to it because it wasn't him calling me that. It was the character calling my character that.
Right.
And he actually ended up getting, like, he messaged me later. He's like, did I upset you? I'm so sorry. I'm like, no, like, I understand it wasn't you calling me that. Like, I completely get it. Like, don't ever call me that. Then I'll be pissed. But, and he's like, no, I would never. And I'm like, okay, we're good then. Like, I understood.
It's always good to have that kind of maybe not even the disconnect specifically, but to be able to reach out to your players, and when something like that happens, to make sure that they were okay with everything. I mean, it's just not even just in D&D specifically, but just as a person, that's very nice that he reached out to you to make sure.
Yeah, exactly. And it happens with other things too. I happened to be the only female at a few of my games at the table, and there were flirtatious efforts, and I shut it down quickly and said, no, like, I'm only going to flirt with NPCs. I am married, and that's an agreement that we made. My husband and I made that agreement that I will flirt with his characters, my best friend's characters, and NPCs, and that's it. Like, those are the only ones on the table.
But we did say in the session 0 that I could flirt with your husband, and everybody seemed okay with that.
That's fine as long as it's in character.
There we go.
Out of character, no.
Oh, out of character is not okay? Come on.
I think Keith would be less okay with it than you were if I actually started trying to flirt with him in real life.
Probably.
You gotta show love to your homies, man.
I do love my homies.
But it was funny, and in character, I was playing a very charismatic consort who used sex to make money, and we always just faded to black. We always, we rolled die to determine how good it was, to determine how much money she made, but that was the extent of what happened behind closed doors. And I was okay with that because we weren't interacting, because if it was anything beyond that, I would have been like, this is awkward, I don't like it.
Yeah, I couldn't. I've had tables of mixed genders. I've played with girls, played with guys. I've played all in between. Is that the right way to say it? I think that's the right way to say it. I play with a lot of people, and I can't think of any time where I've been okay with describing anything sexually explicit aside from flirtation. Even flirtation's a stretch for me. I'm a pretty charming guy, but when it comes to me being in the DM role versus me trying to flirt with someone in real life, it's two very different people.
Right.
I don't have that kind of charm as a DM to do that on the fly, so I don't. And I'm fortunate to never have a table where that came into play, because I would just shut that down because I'm not good at it. And I'd rather keep the session going and everyone have a good time than me just awkwardly fuck it up for the next 5 minutes.
I'm the same way.
In our most recent game that we played in person, Dragon Heist, 3 of the 4 of us had relationships with an NPC. And we always, there was some minor flirting, but it wasn't anything too serious. But mostly it was I want to go on a date. And that was the extent of the conversation. We would have a brief conversation prior to and discuss what the person actually went there to discuss. But anything beyond that was you had a wonderful night and you go home at the end of the night and you stay and spend the night, or whatever the case may be. So at the end of Dragon Heist, 3 of us were in relationships. I think 1 got engaged. Did Val get engaged? Yeah. And then 2 of us 1 had a baby, and then my character was pregnant, because those are the type of things that we enjoyed in the story. But now we're having a 2 to 5 year break in game. Hopefully not out of game, but in game.
Yeah.
Well, with the way things are going here in Florida, you never know.
That's very true.
Yeah. Not happy. But we played out what we were going to do for the next 2 to 5 years with our characters, and I really enjoyed the ending for that. It was... Everybody, for the most part, was happy. The only person that wasn't was dead, which made me sad.
It happens.
Greg's character.
Oh, yeah, Laughless, yeah. He perished pretty early on.
It wasn't super early.
Honestly, I have never killed a PC. In all my years of DMing, I've never killed a PC.
No? Not once?
Never.
Oh.
In all my years, I can't think of a single time where I've killed a PC. I've had PCs die, me myself have played a PC and I've gone and bit the dust.
Sure.
But as a DM, I don't think I've ever killed anyone off.
The very first time I DM'd, and I think we spoke about this briefly on a previous episode, the very first time I DM'd, I killed Nikki's character twice,
yep.
And I had a TPK.
Technically, you killed me 3 times then.
Oh, was it 3?
Well, the TPK part was my third character.
True. Yeah, that's right, yeah.
I did TPK my party, but I was a player character. Does that count?
Yes.
Kinda. Yeah, sure. Why not?
We were playing a modified Curse of Strahd in 5th edition that a DM friend of mine had thrown together way before the actual book came out for 5th edition. And I was playing a Lawful Evil Oathbreaker Paladin, and we were going to go give a relic to Strahd. And as we went to go give it to him, he was going to let us be his minions, because we should have not gotten into his castle in the first place, but we did. Mm-hmm. And so as I reached out to give him this magic orb that put us on this quest, I cast Inflict Wounds on him.
Nice.
And we are 5 level 5 characters versus Strahd himself. We did not make it.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect you to. I would have been completely baffled had you come out the victor in that situation.
It was great. I had a great time dying.
There you go.
And then I never play those guys ever again.
The TPK was also for us was the Curse of Strahd, the beginning quest, the Death House.
Yeah, it's a 1 through 3 level game, and it's really difficult.
Yeah.
So I haven't TPK'd a full party. I In play-by-post games, I've killed characters, but mostly it was because, in most circumstances, it was because they did something stupid, like leaving the party and attacking something they shouldn't have.
Never split the party.
Not a
Like,
great idea.
One example I've said on the podcast before, but they went off and they're like, "Oh, people, I'm gonna go fight them," and I'm like, "Okay, that's purposely balanced for 5 of you, but sure, have fun."
You live your truth, barbarian. It was nice knowing you.
Oh no, it was a rogue or a bard, and I'm just like, please don't. But okay, bye. You're dead now. But I haven't TPK'd anybody. In my current Monday game, my party's pretty freaking ridiculously overpowered. I've killed a couple of characters off, but it was mostly because they left the game. So then I brutally murdered them for leaving the game in character. And good cover. In character, I killed them. Like, my husband left the game and I killed his character because they were currently by a bunch of hags. And he went off and snuck away, and then he decided to leave the game. So I said that he was in the stew that they were cooking.
Delicious.
Nice.
Yeah, that was fun. And then
Scott Tenement style.
Oh, that was a bad one.
and then later a player decided they wanted to have a new character because they weren't happy with their character. So I was like, you have the choice. If you want to, you can do that. And I gave the option. Like, I brought a ship that was of the god that this person worshipped, and they were going to just go on the ship, but then the pirates that they were working for started to steal from the ship, and I rolled dice, and the dice determined that they got caught, and there was a battle, and that character went against the pirate captain, and the pirate captain wasn't too happy about that, so they got killed. But they had already had a new character, so it wasn't like a huge deal.
Always good to have a backup, just in case.
Well, they purposely were that was them trading it out, but still.
Right.
And they really like their new character a lot more. They don't miss as much.
You look at bad luck sometimes. It happens.
Well, there's bad luck. And then there's literally, Vareth is just gonna miss. Because that's canon. And then he's just gonna die because he's up front and personal because he's the paladin. But somehow I always hit him, and then he just falls unconscious. And the character needed some tweaking. That was the main concern. And I was like, we can tweak your character if you want. I can help you build it so it's a little bit more, not min-max specifically, but just a little bit more balanced. Or you can make a new character. That is completely up to you. I am not forcing you to do anything. And she decided to make a new character because she was just like so unhappy. She's like, of course I missed again. Of course I missed again. And I'm like, you're not having fun anymore. Like, if you're not having fun,
at that point, retire your dice.
Or throw it in dice jail, one of the two.
Well,
there you go.
It was the Discord dice, so you can't really do that.
Roll actual dice.
Well, so there's your problem. You're trying to use it digitally. You can't get pure randomness from a digital platform. You gotta throw them clickety-clackities.
I'm calling them that from now on.
Clickety-clacks?
Yes, clickety-clackities.
Yeah.
Oh, crap, I forgot my clickety-clackety set.
Oh, you guys not called them that already?
I did. How many clickety-clackities? How many shinies? I want to learn how to make resin dice. That's what I want to do right now.
Yeah, Ashley was mentioned that you were planning on doing that.
One of my buddies on Twitter, his wife makes resin dice.
I want to, but like I have all the items that I need except for one in my Amazon cart right now, and my wallet is yelling at me not to do it.
Speaking of clickety-clackities, I really hope you guys can hear this because I don't know if my mic will pick it up. But hey Google, let's play D&D. Damn it, didn't pick it up. God damn it.
It was worth a shot.
But it does say, my Google Home will just reply, clickety-clackety, clickety-clackety, let's roll to attackety.
Nice.
I love it. That would be that could be something interesting to do for the possible giveaways in the future. By the way, Nikki, you can make it. Well, yeah, make your own clickety-clackities and then send them to people.
That's true, but that's still a startup value of $212 in my Amazon cart right now.
Oh, geez, I didn't realize it was that much.
So unless we're splitting it 50-50, so I can do giveaways.
About that.
Yeah.
And that's not counting the vacuum chamber, which is probably even more expensive.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Yeah, never mind.
I mean, to be fair, like, that's enough to make probably a dozen sets of dice, which, if you were selling them, that would balance out. But there's going to be problem childs, and I'm going to have problems making dice. there's going to be bubbles, there's going to be issues and ugly ones and stuff like that the first couple of times, which is going to be upsetting. And
Yeah, the practice runs.
Yeah.
I just want to be perfect in every way. Nope, I don't need practice.
Nobody is perfect, not even Matt Mercer.
He's pretty damn close.
He'll disagree with you.
No, I know.
But on that note, I think that's actually our episode.
Yeah.
It was very tight and on point, on subject the whole time.
Totally.
I was gonna say, like, we totally didn't go off on any tangents or
It
nothing.
was a job well done.
Yeah. High fives all around.
So Jeff, tell us where we can find you.
You can find me personally on Twitter at _RKDNC or at jeffneighbors.best. You can find my podcast, ReRoll Expectations, at ReRollCast on Twitter or ReRollExpectations.com. We are on any podcast provider that you can dream of.
Fantastic. And you guys can find us on Twitter and on Facebook at Beholder to No One, and you can find us wherever podcasts are at Beholder to No One. Look forward to our new actual play officially coming live on September 3rd.
Ooh.
Check Twitter for details, though, on names and characters and things like that. But you are the first to know. But yeah, that's everything, guys. Keep being awesome, and bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.